Hi, Professor Monjur. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Livia, and I'll be hosting our conversation for WSSET. WSSET stands for World Society of Sustainable Energy Technologies, and it is a society that brings together researchers, academics, professionals, and organizations working across sustainable energy and related fields. And through this podcast, we want to get to know some of the people behind the research and the work being done in sustainability and hear more about their experiences, perspectives, and journeys. And for today's conversation, I have you, and I would love to talk a little bit about your career journey, your work, and your experiences in academia, as well as get to know you beyond your professional work. And to start with, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Thank you, Livia. Nice to meet you, and thank you for inviting me to speak with you and speak with your audience. My name is Monjur Mourshed. I'm a professor of sustainable engineering at the School of Engineering, Cardiff University. I also have another role at the university. I'm the Dean for Environmental Sustainability. So what it means is that have the strategic oversight and strategic vision for the university to become sustainable. And by sustainable, we mean, becoming net zero, becoming biodiversity positive university, bring together staff, students, and, bring all of us together to promote climate action.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. And so let's start this podcast with a few lighter questions. This one is quite important, actually. Coffee or tea?
I'm a coffee person.
Okay. Because how long have you lived in the UK now?
About 23 years, 23 years.
Oh, I thought it would convert you into a tea person.
Tea person. I was born in Bangladesh, and I was born in a place surrounded by tea gardens. So a lot of you may not know, Bangladesh is also a large tea producer. And the region that I'm from, it's a tea growing region. So I was born surrounded by tea and tea business.
Right.
I've switched to coffee.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And what's something about you that might surprise people who know you professionally?
Oh, that's a good question. Never thought about it. Never thought about it. Surprise people may get surprised that I'm a keen woodworker. So
Mm,
I have a woodworking workshop in the house in the garden, and I sometimes go and make things.
right. Okay. So are you an artsy person then?
Well, I was trained as an architect,
Right.
but
That makes
you
sense.
know, I haven't designed any building for about, I don't know, 26 years.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Okay. And are you a morning person or more of a night owl?
I'm a morning person, so I wake up at 5 in the morning.
And have you been doing that your whole life, waking up in?
No, no. When I was a student, I was a night person. Um, I would struggle to attend classes in the morning. But when I when I started in academia, and much later, actually, when my son was born, because he would wake me up in the middle of the night, so my whole routine just shifted from being a night person to a morning person.
Right. And does that affect when you do your best thinking or research, for example?
I think being a morning person actually helps because usually you don't have any emails or anything to answer. Um, if you had answered all of them the day before, then you are starting with a clean slate and you can do your best thinking in the morning.
Yeah, I agree. So let's stay with the lighter questions for a moment. I know that you do woodworking on the side.
Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies or interests that people might not expect?
I used to have a boat, so I also I'm keen on boating as well,
Oh, wow.
and so these are the things that people wouldn't normally associate me with. Um, and my family would be very surprised. My family is actually surprised because I don't know how to swim. So, me having a boat with a life jacket on, it's different to how people perceive me.
Yeah. How did you get into that?
There was COVID, so we needed something to do, and getting a boat was for us to have a good holiday and for me to try out something that I always wanted to try.
Right. That's actually very good. And I'm assuming that you've probably traveled quite a bit through your work, right? And I wonder what's been your favorite work trip so far and why.
Many different countries for different countries for different reasons,
Mhm.
right? And I always love traveling through Asia,
Mm,
and India and Japan, kind of tops my list because two different countries to see different things, and the people are the most important and interesting aspect of travel, and I love interacting with people.
okay. So it's Japan and India then, like your favorite.
Japan and India because I feel that a lifetime is not enough to see different things in India. Both in terms of culture, architecture, language. You travel 100 miles or 200 miles, things change. Culture changes, language changes, and so many things to see. And Japan gives me a sense of calm when I get there, and which I don't necessarily find it elsewhere. Um, it can pause and it can
Yeah,
have a think. It can think with clarity.
right.
Shall I say?
When you mentioned about calm, about Japan, I'm guessing you didn't mention Tokyo, 'cause Tokyo is very
No, no,
crowded, very
that's right.
full of people.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
like the rural areas or countryside, or even so Japan is again interesting in another way, is that there is so much diversity, so much variety, both in terms of landscape, in terms of the way the city is designed. So it caters to people from lots of different walks of life, lots of different interests.
Yeah, right. Okay, now moving on about book or podcast. Is there a book or podcast you would recommend to someone listening to our conversation today?
Um, So one book, professional, from a professional point of view, it was late David McKay who wrote Sustainability Without the Hot Air, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a book I thoroughly enjoyed reading. The reason is that it was written in a very accessible language.
Okay.
So you don't need to be an expert in the field of energy. I believe the book is still available online for free, so
Right.
anyone can download and read that book. So that's a book I really enjoyed, and I like that kind of writing or narrative where you um, explain things well to considering a very generic audience or general public.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not too many jargons in the book, right?
It talks about a lot of things, a lot of jargons, but it's explained in a way, it's very accessible.
Right.
So it's explained really well.
Okay. I might need to look into that because honestly, I'm also educating myself more about sustainability and stuff, and I would love to get an access to something that is easy to understand and to start with as a new person to start that. Okay, and that's nice. And I would love more. I would love to talk more now, a little bit about your career. So, when you look back at your career so far, what have been some of the key turning points? Like, what made that such a, sorry, like, what happened during your career? Like the key turning points.
There have been many turning points. I was trained as an architect. So architecture is a combination of arts and sciences. And then I thought, okay, one of the areas that I was kind of lacking was more of a quantitative aspect of engineering. And I thought, okay, let me do a PhD in an engineering department because I would love to know more about how engineers think, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about a building has some decisions you can make mathematically. Others, the decision making is not so tangible, not so quantitative. And so I wanted to have a better understanding of mathematical decision making. So that was a turning point when I switched from architecture to engineering. And then when I was doing my PhD, it was about optimization. It was about design generation, but it was mostly about how you can design a building.
Okay.
And then the focus shifted from a building to a group of buildings, and then to the buildings in a whole country or energy systems of a whole country. So the scale and the scope changed, and I thought these are some of the turning points in my career. And my thinking also changed along with that.
Mm.
You are thinking about one building. The factors that affect one building are different to the factors that affect buildings in a whole country.
Right. Wow. Amazing. And I'm sure during those times when you're starting out your career and everything, there have also been things that didn't go according to plan. And what's the biggest lesson you've learned throughout your career?
So back between when I was working at Loughborough University between 2007 and 13, we used to do a lot of building monitoring. So we used to monitor energy consumption in buildings, and then we would try and investigate people's behavior and their impact, the impact of those behavior on energy consumption or sustainability. And monitoring and data collection almost always don't go to plan. So you might have installed some sensors. 6 months down the line, you went there and found that the sensors didn't record anything.
Yeah.
And so from a different research point of view, when you do a monitoring research, one has to have a lot of patience as well as plan A, B, even plan C
Yeah.
to deal with those shortcomings.
Right. And were there particular people who really influenced you along the way, or perhaps someone that helped you going through that phase of your career?
There are too many to mention. There are way too many to mention. So those people include my colleagues, even my students. One might assume, or people might assume that, professors, we only teach our students, but it also happens the other way. When you are working with somebody who's doing their PhD, they learn something before you and they teach you, and that's also a big learning. But I would say that in probably in most people's lives, their parents have been the constant source of mentorship and inspiration. And in my case, my mother had always taught me how to be resilient. She's a very resilient person, and I think that helped me a lot because I switched from one field to another, one topic to another. You have to be really resilient to be able to, move from one to another and still, have some meaningful contribution.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think I would totally agree with you because a lot of the things that I do, my mom has been my source of motivation, inspiration. And so, yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And now, going back to our opening question, which is about your career, I would like to know if academia had not worked out, what do you think you would be doing instead? Would you be doing woodworking or anything?
I actually, so I have never been outside an educational setting in my life. I finished my graduation, started working for university straight away. I've never been outside academia. So my answer would be biased because the only kind of place I really know well is academia. And I think academia suits me well. I don't think I would have done anything on a full-time basis. Um, I might have, I might be, I might have some hobbies, but I think I will be an academic. Um, I would be an academic, even if I had a hypothetical scenario.
Okay. I thought you were gonna answer, I would be an astronaut or something. But
Probably not. I love teaching. I love teaching and I love asking questions and finding answers. And no one would pay me to, to ask questions and find answers.
right. That's in you then, like being in academia.
That's right. Yeah.
And looking back at everything you've done, is there one moment you're particularly proud of?
So I developed a national models for two countries, and which have been in use, and uh, and I thought that was kind of a neat thing, is that I developed something that's useful. I'm not saying that they were the most, the significant scientific breakthrough, but I'm pleased to be able to contribute to something that somebody found useful.
Yeah, I guess that's it, isn't it? The point. The thing that makes you happy is when what you do is useful for other people.
Yes, but sometimes, the other side of the coin is that uh, we may not necessarily know utility of some insights or some information now. It may come to light 20 years down the line, 200 years down the line, right? But that doesn't mean that that work is not significant. Sometimes we don't know what significant is, or we can't actually assess the significance of some inventions or some new finding or new knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Okay, now let's talk a little more about the research side of your career. So, what is the most interesting project that you've worked on?
Um, so the most interesting one is the national models, decarbonization models. So it's about what countries do to be a net zero country by 2050. So I've done that for Wales, I've done that for Bangladesh, and it was in collaboration with the respective governments. And because it was more close to how policymakers make decisions. And I found it really interesting. If you can look at a problem completely from a theoretical perspective, but when you come to implement it, you often find that the factors that you thought are important are not necessarily that important.
Yeah.
And so there was a lesson for me as well. And there was a learning for me, not lesson, but there was a learning for me as well.
Right. But did the project turn out the way you expected it?
I would say it turned out to be better because I doubted myself that whether I would be able to finish it. A was that it accounts for all of the sectors of the economy. And, modeling all of these sectors of an economy, I'm not an expert in all these sectors, but being able to model all of them, and eventually you could see the influence of activity in one sector on the outcomes or the inputs in another sector. And connecting all of them is not easy, but we managed to do that. So it turned out to be better than I expected, I would say.
That's amazing. Sometimes it's so rewarding when you're expecting it, when your expectation is not too high, but it turns out to be very well or better.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, and you obviously spent a lot of time doing teaching and research, and I would like to know, which do you actually enjoy more, teaching or research?
I enjoy both actually, at different times of the year. Um, I enjoy different things. So summertime, uh, it could be because that's how things have always been. So summertime, I would rather not do any teaching. I would focus on research, but that's how it has always been. We didn't have teaching over summer. So it depends on which time of the year you are talking about. And as I progressed through my career, I think I started to enjoy teaching a bit more uh, because it became like a conversation. Once you have taught a module for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, it becomes like a conversation, and you start to enjoy it more. So I started enjoying it more.
Right. Interesting. And now I also wanted to ask you about your role as a Turing Fellow. How did that come about?
Right. So Turing Fellowship is that they publish a call, and their objective is to bring together, you know, researchers in AI and data science, and it allows you or it affords you to be within a network, to exchange ideas, and more importantly, to give back what you have gotten or what we have gotten from our communities. So it's a competitively selected fellowship. And the last time when we got our fellowship, they selected 50 out of I don't know how many hundreds of applications.
Right. Maybe for someone who isn't familiar with it, perhaps you could a little bit explain more about Turing Fellow.
Okay. So the Alan Turing Institute is the UK's National Institute for AI and Data Science. And they work to promote AI research as well as applications. So it's heavily embedded within or inspired by the government's industrial strategy, for example, or government science and technology strategy, innovation strategy. And they work closely with universities as well as businesses, defense, and public sector organizations, wherever there would be a potential for maximizing impact of AI and data science. They work on it.
Right.
And they will also work as a vehicle to connect universities across the UK with the network, as well as their stakeholders. So that's where Turing Fellows come in.
Right. Right. Interesting. Yeah. So I did a little bit of research before this meeting today because I wanted to know more about this person, and I was very impressed and amazed about like the thing that he's done.
It's we have so there's different angles to Alan Turing. His contribution to computing in general, his contribution to winning the Second World War, as well as his personal life. So there are many different angles, but the amazing thing is about the things that he could think of that didn't necessarily exist back then.
Yeah.
If you see something and you explain it, that's something for you. But if you talk about something, or if you come up with something that you don't say, nobody else had said, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Totally agree with you. And now, my last question about your research. Have you ever worked on something that completely surprised you or maybe didn't go as planned?
So, when I started my PhD in engineering, my understanding or my thought was that everything in life you could just convert it into an equation and it can solve it, right? It can find out the best answer for it. And then when I started developing those national models and started forecasting energy consumption, and we still do. We forecast energy consumptions, let's just say from buildings. We recently completed a work forecasting energy consumption in Turkey. And so we did similar forecast between now and 2050. We want to know how much energy we will demand in 2050 so that we can plan for it.
Yeah.
And it's the realization is that it's not just an engineering problem, because the social factors or socioeconomic factors have a more of a role in determining or identifying or influencing what's going to happen in an engineering system. And so it's like coming back in circle. I started as an architect in my education. And then, so it was mostly social science. If you think of architecture really is, design really is. And then going back in circle to the most important thing in the design is people. And the most important thing in an engineering system, the realization is that that's also people. So that was it wasn't surprising, but it was good to have confirmed that understanding that people is the most important thing in both design and engineering systems, and I think any other system that you can think of.
Right, true. It might sound simple, but it took you to that process to learn and realize about that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Something else that's interesting, that I find it interesting about academia, is that doing good research is one thing, but building reputation around your work is another. And I'm curious, how did you build your profile and influence within your field?
Well, obviously, networking, the good work, doing good work is really important. And, doing good research is the key. But then in most cases, if you are doing good work, then people would know that you are doing good work, and word gets out that you do good work. At the same time, good networking, and take the opportunities to communicate research is also important. So sometimes, you get approached by different organizations to communicate what you are doing. And I would say that although it may seem to a beginning academic that, I shouldn't be spending my time on it because I should go and write another paper, improve my citations, or, publish it in a higher impact factor journal. But those little things really help. So back in, I don't remember the year exactly. So I was approached by EPSRC to be part of their delegation to Bangladesh. And before then, I wasn't doing anything with related to 2050 modeling, the long horizon models that I developed, or national scale model. My focus was on building and communities. So that's the scale of my work. And I had teaching at that time, and I thought maybe I shouldn't. It's teaching. It's a lot of work, a lot of changes to be made. But then I said yes, okay, I'll join you guys. And that was interesting in a way that I got to meet the decision makers in Bangladesh, and eventually that led to me leading the development of the tool for Bangladesh. And once I had done this, when we approached Welsh government and we explained that that's what we could do for Wales, because at that time, 2050 model for UK existed, but not for Wales. So the Wales is a regional thing. And so they agreed, and we developed it. So had I not gone to Bangladesh as part of the EPSRC delegation, all those three things wouldn't have happened. But then other things might have happened. But what I'm trying to say is that, take all the opportunities where you are able to engage with people about your research.
Right. Yeah. So networking, doing good work, good research, and so on, and saying yes to opportunities.
Well, but with a caveat, you shouldn't say yes to everything. If you do, then you wouldn't have time to do good research. So you got to weigh in the potential for impact with the time that you have. We would love to have unlimited amount of time, but unfortunately we don't. So we've got to be optimizing.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And for someone who's just starting out, I know you mentioned about a few things on how to build your profile. For someone who's just starting out, what would you recommend them to focus on?
In the beginning, it's gaining skills and improving on the quality of the work is really important. But as you know, in academia, you can't just do one thing. So you have to do all those other things, but the focus should be on doing the quality work, because the opportunities for intense learning kind of diminishes as someone progresses. So most learning happens in the early stages.
Right. And are there any common mistakes you often see young researchers making?
There are, everybody's trajectory is different. Some people may decide to go into industry, gain some industrial experience, then they come back to academia. Some people might start in academia, take a career break, and then come back. Some might stay on. Everybody's different. So in a way that if you are doing the right thing, if you're doing the right thing for the right reason, you can turn it around, you can turn a mistake around. So a blanket statement on that, okay, this is a mistake, that's not, would be very challenging to make though.
Right. Okay. And we live in era of social media and AI.
Yeah.
So basically, we can easily expose ourselves. If we want to, we can put ourselves out there. And what about in research? Do you think social media and having online presence actually really matter for researchers now?
I think it does, although I would say, honestly speaking, I am struggling with social media in a way that, I'm not a social media person. Um, and I think that takes your focus away from whatever you are doing. But at the same time, I can see that it's becoming really important. A lot of the interesting exchanges happened, for example, in LinkedIn. Twitter used to be quite popular amongst academics,
Yeah.
but things have changed a bit since it became X. But social media is really important now. I wish I could do more, but I am who I am, so I wish I could do more.
Okay. I'm happy to teach you anytime about social.
Thank you.
Okay, now we've talked about building your research profile or your profile professionally and talking about social media as well. But as we know, that academia is also very much about the community around it. And, you know, that can be seen through conferences, for example. And like recently, WSSET hosted our annual conference in Kuala Lumpur. It's called SET 2026, and it was my first time attending the conference, and I thought it was amazing. There were so many researchers, young researchers, presenting their research and having a discussion. And I think that is such a nice way to connect with other researchers and showing your work and so on. I wonder if you still enjoy attending conferences, or is there any memorable conference that you've attended?
I do. I enjoy attending conferences, and the things that you can get out of conferences, you cannot get out, you can't get those things in any other way. If you want to read a paper, all the papers are online, um, most papers are online, so you can go and read whatever you want to read. But listening to someone has some kind of an impact that stays with you. So that's one thing. Number two is that, it's really important to have this human connection, to understand another person. If you want to work with someone, there is no other alternative, no better alternative than to know them in person, face to face. From a sustainability perspective, I know we want to reduce the travel for work. So particularly traveling long distances for academic conferences, because that has got an emissions footprint. But at the same time, it's really important to be able to go and speak with somebody in person. I still value conferences, and I think going to conferences at least once or twice a year is really important for development, career development.
When was the last time you attended a conference?
So it was a couple of months ago, in April.
In April, and where about?
April. So it was an Earth Day conference. No, the last conference was in Cardiff. So
And
I managed to attend a conference without increasing my emissions footprint or carbon footprint.
that's amazing. And you still get all the benefit networking, meeting people.
That's right.
And because you organized a conference before, what do you think makes a really good conference presentation, or just in general, what makes a good conference, in your opinion?
So, the primary thing is good research. So, if it's a scientific or academic conference, is how you select the papers for presentation. That's important. A lot of the conferences nowadays are commercial focused, so they would accept more papers than they should. Uh, and so selecting papers or selecting good quality research is important, the first thing. The second one I think is also important is another important aspect of conferences is to give early career researchers a voice as well. So having workshops or having presentations or having a field trip for early career researchers is also important because science doesn't happen out of thin air. It builds on. Likewise, people's career also progresses gradually, and conferences need to be more supportive. A good conference is where you have a good community feeling, where you build a community.
Yeah, totally agree. Very well said. And yeah, so we've talked quite a bit about your journey so far, and I would like to finish by looking ahead. What impact would you most like to have through your work?
So, this is how I started, and I'm still working on. I would love to see more people use my research in either policies or their decision making, and I would be happy to see the reach of the research widening or broadening.
Yeah. And what about success? What would success look like for you?
Okay, so if you define success at achieving something, what it means is that what's after that?
Yeah.
So as soon as you achieve that, you kind of feel lost. So that's why I don't have a definite thing as a success measure. It's just a continuous thing. And so I would love to see more people use my work. I would love to see that the kind of work that we do. So my work relates to decarbonization and net zero. It also has an impact on human health and well-being, particularly when you talk about adaptation. And so if it saves people's lives, if it saves the planet, so that's my success. But the saving the planet doesn't depend on me. But
Yeah.
if I can in some way contribute to that, that would be great.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say that, I would tell myself to start writing early. I am a doer, and writing is something secondary to me. And I have written, but I should have started earlier.
Yeah, right. Okay. And you're still writing now, right?
Yes, as an academic, we will have to write.
Yeah, that's cool. And what about your field? Like, where do you see your field in the next 10 years?
Our field modeling is at an inflection point, so it's things are changing. We used to be constrained by computational power. I remember running optimization. So optimization meaning, imagine you let computer design a building.
Yeah.
And so the way a computer decides it is that it creates an initial design, let's just say a box, and then it runs some analysis. Okay, this is what the performance of the building looks like, and then change another parameter, run the simulation again. So it does this, it used to do this millions and millions of times. And to do all of those simulations, we would give commands to the computer and come back in a month's time or 2 months' time, right? So that's how it used to be. Then we started using supercomputers or high performance computing. The simulation and optimization time got reduced as well. Now is the age of AI, where the AI technique called, AI is being used as surrogate models or proxy models, right? And that's reducing the time it takes to reach a decision. Now, the interesting thing would be is that how many more factors we can consider, how many more factors we can put into a model and consider simultaneously. So I would say that the efficiency will improve, but more importantly, the effectiveness or the accuracy of our decisions will improve significantly, orders of magnitude, within a very short space of time. And it's all down to AI and the significant increase in compute power.
Yeah, yeah. There's just so many possibilities, I feel like, with the
There is, yes.
AI now. Okay. And finally, what is the one thing that you still hope to achieve before you retire?
So I have open source some of the tools that I worked on, and we are currently working on open sourcing a net zero pathways model. So I would love to see an integrated model being released and used more widely. So you might see that most of my answers are related to that. I would like to see more people use better tools for decision making. When I started my role as a dean, I was quite surprised to see that the gap between academia and practice. So what academia is working on is, let's just say, cutting edge stuff that you are working on, and practice, what we are using in real life, is 10, 15, 20 years behind.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see that more academic research is released as tools that practice or industry can use to reduce that gap between, coming up with an idea and implementation.
Right. Wow, that's a nice place to end. And I just once again wanted to say thank you so much for doing this interview. It's been really interesting hearing about your journey and your perspectives on the field.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was nice having a chat about the whole career on a bright sunny morning. Thank you.